I'll second.
Second.
Emily, thank you. Any discussion or amendments to the minutes? They were lengthy, but I didn't see anything glaring. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Galen abstains, okay. Motion carries. Okay, so this is our working session as a committee to kind of cull over all of the information that we have gotten from the various departments over the past few weeks. And I am going to have Stacy kind of synthesize all of that for us to look at, if she would.
Sure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm going to share the schedules. Normally I bring up the PDF, but if we kind of want to play with numbers or move things around, I'm going to open up the Excel schedule. So it's not going to be as clean as a PDF, although it is very clean. Kristen, thank you.
Katie, could I just ask, what is it that we're trying to accomplish today? How will we know when we're finished?
Sure. So my understanding is today is, and this is what Stacy is going to share right now, is now that we've been presented with all of the information, looking it over, making sure it is affordable, and potentially passing this on to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance via a vote. If we do not complete our work today, which there is no, we do have another meeting on the books. So we can certainly schedule that, but it's basically, Al, if anybody has any issues with what's been presented or needs more information, certainly we can do that, but it's really just looking at what has been presented and where the accounting is. Does that help? Stacey?
Okay, so first thing, Katie, we don't have another meeting scheduled. However, before we end today, as you said, we'll have to get that on the books because our public hearing is next Tuesday.
Okay, I thought there was an as needed one. No, am I thinking of Board of Finance maybe?
That's after the public hearing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, just to kind of recap where we ended up and if we're still good after the public hearing. So my thought was, and this is what we typically do, we certainly can change the process, is we first start with this schedule. This is the annual capital budget. And what it does is it shows everything by fund, what will be included in the budget at referendum. So for example, the ambulance replacement fund this current fiscal year, it was 100,000. This upcoming fiscal year is 100,000. So if everything went as planned and we didn't change anything around, the budget that will be included in the 22-23 referendum for capital will be this 3.815 number, which at this point is showing a 7.79% increase. And as you know, as we went, and we are going to go through the schedules, but these numbers support all of the projects that we discussed over the last few weeks with members. So if we did support everything that they came in requesting, we believe this is how we need to fund each one of those capital project funds. So, any questions?
I just want to make one comment that one of the reasons why this increase is so large this year is because last year we held it at a 0% increase. Had the approximately 2 to 3% increase that was originally in there, then this would be a lot flatter. So I just wanted to make note of that.
So that's a great point, Joan. However, don't forget, we did do a special appropriation infusion for that 1 year. So yeah, and it does affect the outgoing years as well, because it won't be compounded. But I just don't want you to forget that we did do that as well to help.
Yeah, we infuse money, but it doesn't necessarily, yes, correct. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Okay, so historically what we did is we went through each fund individually, and then we would take a vote on each fund and then move from there. And we normally save the CNRE for last, So my thought is we could start with the ambulance fund, move forward in the book, skip over the CNRE fund. And then before we go back to the CNRE fund, I'd like to share the ARP page. And I know Peggy's online, she can go over those projects. But in order to push the document forward with the way the numbers are in the CNRE, we also have to, so to speak, bless the ARP recommendation as well. But if
Maureen,
you're
did you
okay,
have-
oh God,
I think Noreen had a question.
oh, sorry, Noreen.
No, I don't. I don't have a question.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so can we move to the ambulance fund? Is that, okay. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. Okay. Just give me one more second.
Hey, Katie, I do have a question now. Could we just, for those of you who were on last year, why did we not, why did we keep it at 0 last year? What was the thinking? I mean, I'm assuming it has something to do with the pandemic, but can anyone tell us?
I can say I don't think the committee actually did, Noreen. This was board decisions as we move forward, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, after looking at the budget and seeing that we kind of wanted to hold the mill rate somewhat at a lower increase. We actually did that for the last 2 years, just so you know.
So, yeah, I think that was not done at the CIP level. I think it was just done at the Board of Finance. We pulled some things out the Board of Selectmen level and made them special appropriations by infusing money into certain accounts. I just don't remember the action items. But I know there was an additional reduction taken by the Board of Finance, I think of like $500,000 or something out of CIP, right? I can't remember the details.
Sorry, I was listening while I was trying to share the screen. I think what we did, it was 161,000 to keep the annual capital budget flat, as well as 500,000 for the highway equipment. And I do think the Board of Selectmen discussed it and then recommended that the Board of Finance do that. So I think both boards were on board with this decision.
No, but there was an additional change, I thought, done by the Board of Finance. I'm just trying to remember. I remember there were several steps. There was an additional reduction made by the Board of Finance.
I'll have to get back to you, Peggy. I don't recall that, but I'd have to look
Okay.
back in my notes for that.
There was one to the Board of Ed, but I don't recall it to.
Maybe it was just
Right.
160 then, yeah.
That's what I remember too. There was 100,000 to the Board of Ed's operating budget. But I'll go back and make sure.
Yeah,
And let
there
you
was
all
just a
know.
couple, I know there was a couple of things done after the CIP voted.
Remember that highway equipment took a couple meetings as well, because we got that study and then came up with that new leasing schedule. So that,
Yeah, it might have been just that I'm thinking of.
Okay, thank you.
okay. So this is the first fund, the ambulance fund. These were the projects up here that they are recommending. We are carrying forward 61,000, and if we flat fund it at 100,000 for the next 5 years, that should support their plan.
And the only new thing on there isn't until way out, right? Is the ambulance.
Correct.
Okay.
May I just ask, one of the things they told us is that they have funding, and I totally support funding this, the tanks for sure. But they have told us that they are delayed, they can't get them, or they're having trouble getting the land and whatever. How far back are they, and are we? It's something at least we should look at. down the road if we're going to continue funding this and they keep just accumulating. They can't stay ahead of it.
I'm sorry, Noreen, I'm funding,
Well, when this is water tanks we're talking about, right?
no,
Oh, Ray ambulance. I got the wrong. I put up the wrong page on. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Sorry about that.
The ambulance is on page 22, Noreen. I don't know
You know
if you
what,
guys have notes.
I do have it. I'm sorry, Stacy, but I have increased costs after COVID.
Yeah.
They have, I wrote down delay in delivery. And I think I just put that with the tanks. But what is the delay in delivery they talked about? Sorry for my voice.
I think it's just like any vehicle right now. Hopefully we'll recoup and things will get back on track. But the
All right.
plan was to still keep them where they are at the costs that they're at.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was on the wrong page.
So Katie, if you want to call motions, then we can, I can note them and I can just keep moving forward.
Sorry. So we'll do it fund by fund, Stacy?
Sure, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just makes it cleaner.
So, okay, so can I get a motion to approve the ambulance replacement fund?
$100. Second.
Any discussion? Nope. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. Okay. So moving on.
I'm gonna go over CNRE. We'll come back to that.
Yes. That's a big one.
Oh. Okay, Coastal Resiliency Plan.
Okay.
So as you recall, John came in, talked about this. We talked about the commission that's out there doing their work. As you know, we infused $500,000 through a special appropriation. The way that the state statute is written, we are not allowed to fund this through budget dollars. So you can see the annual capital budget is zero. However, in order to keep this plan moving and growing, we're recommending that we at least put in $100,000 a year through a special appropriation, knowing it's a different process. But again, this being the planning document, we thought we would put that in there so we can see the balance continue to grow.
Any discussion on this fund? Hearing and seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve the Coastal Resiliency Fund?
So moved.
And a second? Thank you, Emily. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, coastal resiliency is passed. And
next,
communication.
Communications, which is page 132, if you're following in your book. Really the only new items, these first two items were coming off of leases. As you recall, it's been in here for quite some time. We did the tower and purchased some heavy duty equipment across all of the emergency services. And that's pretty much what this fund has been about and why we continue to fund it at the level, because all that expensive equipment will eventually come up again. And to have the balance in there will definitely help us purchase that. The one newer item is the Route 79 tower replacement, which Jack talked about at length. And at this point, it's a number in there. We're not sure what that number will be or what the plan is, but we did want a placeholder in there for that project. And then this is the funding that we're recommending at this point in time in this fund.
So can I get a motion to approve communications fund?
So moved.
Thank you, Emily. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Noreen. And is there any further discussion on this item?
Yeah, this is Galen. I do have a question. I remember Jack went into great detail about the uncertainties about ownership of the tower and what comes up when. So, and I know that we'll nail that down. Is there any conceivable way that would affect the out years and the spending? I know I also know that we need to have a placeholder out there. But do we have like any kind of, is it reasonable to expect knowledge on this within 6 months, a year? And what kind of effects would this have downstream?
So we'll certainly need to have it more concretely for next CIP cycle, right? Because it's coming up, well, I guess it's not coming up for a couple of years. But I would imagine, hopefully by next year so that we can really start to do some concrete planning for it. Is that reasonable, do you think, Stacy, to expect?
Yeah, we also have, as you know, that tower, we have some rental income, some pretty hefty rental income, and that lease expires in, I believe, January of,
December 24th.
yeah, it's, I think January 1st of 25. So we do need a plan. I mean, that right now we're getting about $250,000 of rental income for that. So I think it's bigger than just, putting a tower on there. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, just so you know, the town is working on that next phase after 2025 when the agreement expires. We're already in active discussions with the property owner. So it's on our radar.
Yeah, I knew it would be. I just, for my own benefit, just wanted to clarify that.
No, it's helpful, I think, for all of us. Any other questions or concerns about the communications fund? So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? And motion carries.
Okay, Noreen, here's your water tanks.
As soon as I saw delay in delivery, right away I thought a delay or whatever.
Yeah, no, I know. This has been delayed as well historically. But I do think that the chief would like these still noted in the years that, we're trying to do them and set aside the funds and hopefully get things moving a little quicker than it has in the past.
Well, I'm totally in favor of the continuity, but it's he wasn't able to install the ones from 20 and 21. I know we talked about maybe the town helping them out with them having problems with, acquiring sites.
And Stacy, just for everybody's edification, if these don't happen, the money goes back into the general fund or stays in CIP?
So it's typically it would stay in this fund. If all of a sudden the fire company comes back and says, listen, we don't need to do this one at that location, we would just have to go through the process to take it out of this fund and put it into the general fund. But until that actually happens, the money is set aside in this fund for these tanks.
And I think if it can't be for the specific place that they looked at, they may try to find another place close by to still be able to have same element of coverage, if I'm not mistaken.
I wanted to question, at what point do we have to start funding again for the oldest tanks? In other words, what's the useful life of these things? Are we going to reach a point where we have to start replacing them?
I think they said probably not anytime soon. I want to say, I remember 40 to 50 years from now.
I remember the same thing, Stacy.
Yeah, that was the answer last year, 40 to 50 years out. So probably to keep the fund there and maybe not fund it for a few years, but then make sure that it still sits here so that people are reminded that in the future it will have to be funded.
Thank you.
So can I get a motion to approve the fire protection water tank fund?
So
So
moved.
moved, Gail. Oh, go ahead, Noreen. You get questions.
I'll second it.
Awesome. All in favor? Or any further discussion? Sorry. No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. And I don't have you all on my screen, so I'm assuming you're all raising your hand and saying aye, or you'll speak up. Okay, so moving on. That passes.
Next is the infamous highway and equipment fund that we've spent a lot of time last year going through and trying to get the right plan after the study. I think Kristen probably did 8 iterations of what the best path we should take. So this is based on last year. We did order our 3 trucks. When are they coming?
Any day.
Any day, literally. The 3 huge trucks that was part of the plan will be coming in. And this plan will also support getting everything that the study recommended within the next 6 years. So these are lease payments up here to support that plan. And then going down here, this is how we have to fund it. And there really is no room to reduce those annual capital payment amounts.
This is awesome. I think that vehicle study is going to pay off in terms of helping us stay on track and plan for this. Does anybody, or can I get a motion and then we'll discuss?
So moved.
Thank you, Justin. Can I get a second? Thank you, Al. Any discussion? Justin.
I have a quick comment, Katie. I guess maybe this is a budgetary item, but maybe just something as this item comes up every year, and there's a lot of vehicles. Maybe asking the Board of Selectmen to just take a look. There's some drive home vehicles, and maybe just taking a look at that and making sure that those are all necessary for people who have town vehicles that they take home. I think that's the far smaller part of this budget or this line item, but nonetheless, every little bit helps. If there's something there, we can take a closer look at.
Stacy, or not Stacy, Peggy, if you're still there, was that looked at as part of the vehicle study that was done?
Yeah, so the town has a long established policy that if you are considered a first responder, then you have a take-home vehicle. And if you live within, I think it's like a 45-minute commute of the town. If you live outside of that, you don't have a take-home vehicle. So there's a policy that's been in place for a while, and that's kind of standard practice for municipalities, is my understanding. So take-home vehicles would go to the health department, the emergency management, the building inspector is considered a first responder in case there's a structure fire. So different functions, but that's certainly something that I think is worth taking a look at again in terms of what our town policy is. But from what the consultant had said, I think that we didn't have anything unusual in terms of that policy.
You're on mute, Katie.
I was being so verbose. No, I was really just calling for the approval of the highway equipment and town vehicle fund. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, that passes. Okay, moving on.
Okay, the next one is Madison hose apparatus truck replacement. There's nothing new in here. We've been planning for these expenditures, which is really nice for us to be able to buy $1 million truck in 1 year. So we're looking at the annual capital budget to increase a little bit and then level off moving forward. As you can note, this current fiscal year, we did reduce it a little bit. So we do have to take a little bit of a jump to bring it back up, but starting in year 2, we should be back to a level funding.
Stacy, I know this, well, let's motion and then I'll discuss. Can I get a motion to approve the Madison Hose Company 1 apparatus and truck replacement?
So moved, Emily.
Thank you,
I'll-
Emily.
I'll second.
Thank you, Noreen. So discussion, I just have in my notes the Firehouse expansion. I know that's technically part of CNRE, correct?
Yes,
But it's not for this next cycle.
no, it's
Okay.
in later years, but you'll
Okay.
see it when we do the CNRE.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Katie, this is Noreen. I just want to, for anybody who's new on this, and I don't know if there's anybody, it's, there's still so many towns that bond for these things. And I think, Madison has a long, long history of planning for our, for anything with our emergency vehicles. And I think it's just remarkable that we do it this way and it's worked for us. And I know our departments are happy with it, and the continuity that we supported each year is important. That's all.
Thank you for those comments. I agree. So all in favor of approving the Madison Hose Company number 1 apparatus and truck replacement fund, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay.
Okay, the next fund is also Madison Hose Company. And this is for pretty much small hose and equipment purchases that they need throughout the year. Our funding has been relatively consistent over the years. And if they don't spend it in 1 year, they can plan and use it and spend it in the following years.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Emily.
Thanks, Emily. Second?
Elon, second.
Thank you, Caitlin. And boy, yeah, you can't get any more consistent. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
sorry, Justin, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion carries.
Okay, going in alphabetical order, the next fund is major roads. We do have, as John talked about, some big bridges in here. We do have some offset grants. These are all the roads for the 5 years. With grants offsetting the bridges up top. And again, these roads were the outcome of the road study that Public Works did receive. We did infuse $660,000 during this current fiscal year to help keep things moving, do even more. And then the goal has always been to increase the funding about $60,000 every year. So that's what's in the annual capital budget, to get to $1 million finally. That was a goal way back when, to have the annual funding at $1 million.
So can I get a motion to approve major roads?
So moved.
Second?
I'll
Anyone?
second.
Thank you, Noreen. Any discussion? Joan, I see your hand up.
I just want to note that this is the second time the major road study has happened, and the first time we did it was the first time, I think, ever So I think that this is a good precedent that the experts come in, they verify each, every road in town, verify the things that were done with the money as well to make sure that everything looks good. And I think it's a good way to go forward, and it gives documentation to the public as to why these roads are coming up. So I think getting to $1 million is huge because we have a lot of roads in Madison. We are a long town and there's a lot of roads.
May I
I couldn't
just,
agree more, Joan. Great point. Go ahead. Sorry, Henry.
no, I just wanted to add, but I think as we spoke, there is some flexibility. If something happens, this department can certainly take a look at and exchange one road for another if we see there's obviously an issue with safety. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we were told at our meeting, Peggy or
Yeah, I
Stacy,
mean,
can you confirm?
Yeah, we're not approving a specific list anymore because just, they'd go out to bid, they have to reshuffle, weather, there's like all kinds of factors. Stacy, correct me, I'm wrong, because didn't the town used to come out with like a specific list each year? And now they're just, they have a fund and then it's at the discretion of Public Works Director.
Correct. Yeah, we used to actually, in the legal notice for the budget, that big 3-4 page, we used to list the roads in there, and then the boards got together a few years ago in order to give a little more flexibility to this fund and change that.
Okay, so having a motion and a second, can I get a motion or a vote to approve? All in favor? Aye, say aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, major roads passes. Moving on to North Madison Firehouse, is that right, Stacy?
Yep, for their apparatus and truck replacement. So all they have right now is that one truck replacement in year 4. It was in year 5 last year. And then in order to fund it, we have been level for many, many years. They do have, I believe, a 10-year schedule that shows us, as other replacements are coming up. But this will keep us on track for their requests.
Can I get a motion to approve North Madison Fire Company Apparatus and Truck Replacement Fund?
So moved.
Second? Thank you, Justin. Any further discussion or questions for Stacy? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Passes. Okay, so moving on to hose and equipment.
Yes, so this is for Nomad's hose and equipment. It's pretty much the same thing we discussed about with Mad Hose. They get $32,000 a year. We fund it at $37,000. Their goal is to build up the fund for larger purchases in outer years. And this has been consistent for a long time as well.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes. Okay, open space.
Really nothing here.
No, literally nothing.
Yeah, literally nothing. There's a balance. And there's a regulation on what we could do with these funds, but in this past year, there's been no change as far as any deposits going in there.
Okay, it's really risky. Anybody want to motion to approve? Nobody.
I'll do.
Thank you.
Justin or Galen?
That was Justin, and I think
I'll-
Noreen is second, or is that Galen?
Galen for sure.
Okay, Galen.
Well, we'll dub this the Seinfeld. amendment, 'cause it's all about nothing. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Any further discussion? All in favor, say
You get
aye.
paid-
Oh, sorry. Did I miss somebody?
No, I was
No.
just saying you get paid for a number of motions, so you gotta get your hand up.
Yeah.
No, I think you all haven't had your coffee yet.
I think Galen can legitimately tell people he made a motion to spend no money.
There you go.
I don't,
There we go.
I like it. All right, all in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Police vehicles. This is yellow.
Okay, so we went over this, I believe, at length with Jack because we moved a little bit of the vehicles around. So that I don't think there's any really surprises out here other than this K9, how we reallocated some of those funds for this purchase and then moved the vehicle out to year 3. And in order to do that, his annual capital budget will remain flat for this 1 year, and then we'll go up a little bit to support the increasing costs in his vehicles.
Can I get a motion to approve?
so moved.
Thank you, Noreen. Can I get a second?
The hardest part of the meeting.
Thank you, Emily. Any discussion? No. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Passes. Okay, we're getting there, folks. We're on to technology.
Okay, Art had come and talked about this, about increasing the police technology plan as far as the storage for the cloud and some other little things, and then the telephone system that he talked about, the mandatory changes. So in order to support this, we do see quite an increase in the annual capital budget.
Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Second,
Second,
any discussion? Thank you, Al.
I'd just like to say that from a technology standpoint, Art has done a lot with a very little amount of dollars. So the fact that this is jumping up is to me not too surprising, but also I think that we've got to look towards the future of keeping that number up there and not trying to go back down. Technology is expensive and going to get even more expensive with the supply chain issues. So I think that this is something that's warranted and is a positive move for the town and the technology that's used by the town.
Thank you, Joan. A lot of it's out of our control too in this one, so. Any other discussion or questions? So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. And now I think we just have the CNRE, right?
Yeah, yep. So I don't know, Katie, my first thought was to go to the ARP summary, and we could
That'd be
have
great.
Peggy, if she's still around, she could highlight the projects and why we put them there. And then we can go and see what the CNRE looks like with these ARP offsets. Okay.
That works for me.
And Stacy,
ahead.
what page is that on?
It's right in the beginning, 32, beginning on page 32, Noreen.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. I have copious notes from our meeting on Thursday. At least it's all fresh in our minds.
I think the actual schedule is page 18 of
Okay.
the ARP.
Oh, the ARP, gotcha. My apologies. Peggy, are you with us still?
I am.
Oh, yay. Okay. So I don't know if you have our page. Oh, there it is. It's on the screen. So if you just want to go through the rationale for these funds and why they are suited for the proposed ARP funding.
I mean, I think we pretty much tried to identify outdoor amenities that got a tremendous amount of use during the pandemic. A lot of towns are using ARPA funds for their, their recreation facilities, playgrounds, things like that. And also we felt that, it's not septic, but wastewater infrastructure was also identified as part of the COVID, the ARPA funds. And so the bathrooms, we kind of took a theme from that. And we said, okay, we have our parks and our beaches, and we also need to upgrade our restroom facilities. So it kind of was a hit on a couple of different categories in ARPA funds. So that's where we looked at the different bathroom facilities and targeted those. And for replacement. And I know that Austin kind of walked through the logic to putting in the waterless facilities and things like that. I don't know did you guys get to see pictures of what those look like? Because they actually look really nice and they look like normal facilities. This isn't like some weird, quirky, high-end porta potty. They actually look like normal bathroom facilities. So I was kind of surprised because I was a little skeptical, but when I saw the photos of what has been used in other places, they're actually quite attractive. So, so that was kind of the rationale with the bathrooms. The surf club playground, we talked a lot about, because I know we're also putting together this plan that is going to be more of a broader master plan for the surf club, and that will look at like the location of everything at the facility. And so any kind of playground upgrades would be transferable. Like it would be something that we could actually move the playground if we had to, which we're not clear if that's what we want to do. But at the same point, there is an ability to kind of move all the equipment and relocate it once we make this investment. I mean, that playground is heavily used. The materials there don't do well with salt water. And so that was kind of the logic behind putting that playground as part of using ARPA funds, because it was so heavily used during the pandemic. I know we had playgrounds closed at one point, but that was very early on. And then once, that's been something that has been just open to the public really for most of the pandemic. So that's, I don't know, do you want me to go through the whole thing? I guess I can. And then the geothermal, HVAC systems and air quality systems have also been a theme that many communities are using for ARPA. The geothermal system, the town hall heating system has to be replaced. It's been on CIP for a long time. Stacy can talk to how long this project has been there, I think. It was originally estimated to be like a $500,000 type of replacement system using traditional technologies. And then that started to get more expensive. And then we started talking about wanting to use more energy efficient systems, which we're doing now with both the school plan that's being voted on, as well as with the academy proposal. And I know that Bill McMahon has been wanting to do geothermal here at Town Hall. And he went out and actually priced both of traditional system and geothermal again last year. And the two are actually not too far apart now. It's slightly more expensive than a conventional system, but there are different characteristics to Town Hall that makes geothermal actually not that much more expensive. So that was kind of seen as it's the largest project, I guess, we're funding out of ARPA funds right now, as a big savings for the town to take it out of CIP. And it also allows us to get a really good system in, at this, well-used facility. And then I think we took the HVAC theme also and tried to look at all the other facilities where we thought there were some priorities that need to be done. And that's where we came up with Memorial Town Hall. And then the ambulance has been a problem for a while. They've had some issues with air quality there. I'm not sure if it's mold. I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but there's been a number of issues and we've had complaints from the staff. Even though that system isn't that old, there was just some issues about how it was designed and humidity, I guess, that they needed to make some improvements. We already gave them a budget. And I think what happened is that was done on a quick fix, that budget. I think originally we had allotted them, Stacy, correct me, like $40,000 or something. Do you remember?
I think so. It wasn't that much. I don't know the exact amount.
Yeah. And so this is actually, they went in and looked at the entire system after the fact. That was kind of a quick fix kind of thing. And they came back with a much larger budget to fix the problem permanently and also just create better air quality for that facility. And as we know, that's a responder facility, first responder facility. And we thought it was important to make the investment in that. So that's this new budget number, I guess, came from Bill McMinn, correct, Stacy? Yeah. So that was kind of, you can kind of see up, the first group is kind of outdoor amenities. The second group is air quality, HVAC related. And then the final thing is this storage building that our emergency management has, and including our ambulance, has really little storage. And so, they talk about equipment, PPE was a big thing that we have nowhere to put things. And then, we have these emergency signs now that are a big investment that we've made. There's also the ambulance from what I understand is kind of bursting at the seams and needs additional storage. So this was to erect some sort of storage facility. And so this was not in CIP, I don't think, correct, Stacy? Some of these were in CIP and some of them weren't, right? Or are these all CIP projects? I don't know that, I can't see the title on this.
Yeah, they're in there now. I mean, we went through that whole study, which will explain a lot of the additions in CNRE. And then we kind of looked at each project to see, what our original plan was and what the study came out, and kind of decided by project where.
Right. So the emergency, that's right. The emergency management store, it hadn't been in CIP before, but then we put it in. Whereas like the geothermal system had been in CIP for a while. So some of these are tackling newer projects that just kind of came about in the last year, especially since we had the DRA study that did the conditions assessment study. So that's kind of how we came up with this list. And then this basically represents roughly half of the ARPA funds that we have. The other half has either was spent, I think we spent $800,000, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance had approved. And then the remaining would be left up to the ARPA committee that would basically go through and use the remaining funds based on some guidelines that the Board of Finance had just come up with at our last meeting.
You hit my question, Peggy, thank you. I was wondering about that committee and what this approval or disapproval might mean for their work, but it's separate, correct?
Yeah, actually, maybe what would be helpful just for the benefit of, Stacy, I could share my screen just showing that ARPA summary we did, at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. Do you mind if I share?
Nope, you're up.
Okay, this is just, I think, helpful for, all right, let me see. I think this is it. Okay. So this just would help you understand the status overall, so you get a better idea. And I can't, okay, there, that's better. So these were rounds that the different Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen approved of different near-term projects that we did. The largest being really out of this was this Meals on Wheels funding, which is kind of eye-popping when you think about, that's a whole nother discussion that the boards are going to have. But so we've done, things already. And that basically totaled about $800,000. And then we said, okay, we're putting a halt now. We're turning this all over to a public committee. So that leaves $4.5 million left. And then I went through with the town staff, and we kind of came up with a list of projects we thought in CIP that would be appropriate. And that's how we came up with the list, the $2.5 million list that you've seen. And some of those were already in CIP, and some of those new ones that we added based on the DRA study that came out. So, because Bill McMinn added a ton of stuff based on the DRA study. So then we went back and we kind of went through that new combined list. And then that would leave approximately $2 million that the ARPA committee, what you guys could do, if there are other projects in CIP you feel should come out of ARPA funds, you can also, make a recommendation to the ARPA committee that it take, if there's a couple projects that you feel we should be using ARPA funds for, then you can make that recommendation to the ARPA committee. I think the idea, though, with the ARPA funds, the remaining $2 million, is that you want to have, we talked about this transformational thing, and we talked about wanting to touch point every part of the community. So we're looking at setting up some community assistance funds. And we wanted an opportunity for this other committee to really look at it a little differently, because let's face it, we could spend all of the ARPA funds on CIP, right? So I think the question is that really the spirit of what ARPA is about? And are there other things that we should be doing that we normally wouldn't have funded? And this creates an opportunity to fund those. So that's really the discussion. So, what you could do is pass, I'm just thinking out of the box here, you could, pass based on this, but then highlight a couple other projects that ARPA might consider. If you feel like there's another project or two that ARPA should consider, the committee, but not take action on that in terms of your recommendations. You could do a side recommendation. Hey, there's these other 3 projects we really think should get funded through ARPA, and then the committee could consider that.
I think that's why it's helpful to have the representatives that are on CIP also on the ARPA committee, so that we've gone through all of these projects, and there may be things that we can discuss as a group with the other committee members as things that are still outstanding.
I have a question on that. Thanks, Peggy, for sharing that list. On the round 2, there was a line item for ambulance HVAC for $26,000. Is that in addition to the part that's in CIP?
Yeah, that was what I was referring to. I think I said 40, but it sounds like it was 26. I couldn't remember. Yeah, so they originally did like a quick fix number. Hey, we need this money right away to fix some things. And then when they got into the system, there was Bill McMinn got involved and said, this is really a bigger problem, and we need to put some more money behind this to fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that was really helpful. Is anybody else hearing background noise?
I think it's Gus because he's not muted, but sorry to call him out. But
it sounds like a playground. Sounds fun wherever it is. Okay, so.
But Gus has 2 boxes too, which I think that's totally unfair that he has.
He's earned 2 boxes.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure he's hearing us, however. Okay, so that was super helpful. Thank you. And Stacy, do you want to go through the rest of CNRE before we circle back to the ARPA?
Yeah. Of course, I think I'm sharing my screen and I'm not, so sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody has any specific questions or comments on the projects. I think Austin and Billy did a great job going through everything. The ARP projects that we just looked at are noted on the right side. There were a lot of changes this year, again, because of the facility study on the town side. We knew it was coming. And so that did create a lot of changes from last year. And we do try to put any new items in year 5, but that didn't work quite that way this year. But I think they did a good job explaining why they are where they are. So I'm just going to scroll to the bottom to show you what the fund looks like. with the ARP offset. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy here. Okay. So total projects are, for the total projects are on this row 128. That includes in this current fiscal year, the 2 big projects that are going to referendum. So don't get scared by that big number over here, this 105. You can see it's offset with bonds and grants. So if we look at years 1 through 5, the total projects come to these highlighted items on road 128. We do have some offset grants. And then in the later years, because these numbers are so big, for example, the building, Katie, as you wanted to just revisit quickly, is offset by a potential bond. So there are some big numbers in years 2 through 5 that we wouldn't be able to do pay as you go. So our estimation is that we will have to issue future bonds for these projects. But at this point, this is just a planning document and we're not even going there. So if we do for now use that offset, we come to this net amount of what we would need for these 5 years. The ARP then would be subtracted, and this is at 2.555 that we just looked at. So those projects are included up above here. And then if we fund the CNRE at a 3% increase, which historically has been our goal, this right here, this 137 would be our running balance. Just highlight it for you. Oops. Would be our running balance in each of the years. I don't know if you guys can see it if it's too small. You'll note that years 4 and 5 are a little lower than we try to keep the fund at, but this was the best we could do without really jumping up the annual budget. But without this ARP offset, we would really have to go back and revisit these projects and see what we want to include in the 5-year plan. So I would think, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, you know, that the idea of future bonding, I'm sure, you know, raises everybody's antenna given where we are right now. So, but in the past, what we've done to kind of even things out is push certain things out. And so it's not for certain that we would have to do that, right? I mean, who knows?
Great point. You know, I didn't mean to scare everybody with that. It was just when I see these big numbers, I know we can't, you know, we're going to have to make some decisions. Absolutely. Do we move some of the projects out is definitely one of the considerations we'll have to make.
I mean, I will highlight that the town is taking a very aggressive and proactive approach to getting grant funding. Because of the federal infrastructure bill, as well as some other opportunities, you know, we're actually going to be having a big focus and town staff focusing on applying for grants. So the hope is that, you know, we could target a number of things in CIP to offset with grants. So that would hopefully help the situation if we're successful. I think Madison, if I look at this, Stacy, and I just was glancing at it, I mean, that's the one that's kind of throwing us into the problem area, right? Is that $3 million project?
There's, okay.
But I mean, that's kind of the big one.
There's also, Peggy, there's also the remainder of the 10-year plan.
Right, for the Board of Ed, which is a separate, so I think any of these, we're going to be looking at trying to get other kinds of funding. And then the town is just going to have to prioritize and to Katie's point, push some things out and delay or find alternatives to that.
And I think those alternatives are awesome if we can keep getting them. And it's a great planning tool, but it's things we know about now. And as we all know, things happen like COVID or, you know, other things that may be also added to this list as a planning thing. But at least this gives us a sense of where the trouble years are so that we can work to manage spending and plan for.
And that's a great point, Katie, because again, I didn't mean to, throw something out there that I shouldn't have, but we always, year after year, it's a planning document and things are moved around, a lot. I mean, you should expect changes. 5 years is hard to plan, but to your point, everything is on the schedule, and that's why the numbers are what they are, because these are things that we know about. We don't want them to get lost, and we don't want to get not prepared to do them. But yes, grants or shifting things around, we do all the time.
You didn't scare me too much, Stacy.
Well, and also to that point is that we're making an effort to do 10-year planning now because of that. So that if you kind of shift things out and reprioritize, things don't fall off the radar for planning purposes. And so Bill made a huge effort using the DRA study, and then we're going to try to get other town departments next year, everybody look at 10 years versus just 5 years. So that helps us do our planning. And then your job as part of this committee is just to focus on the funding piece for the next 5 years.
And the funding piece is much more fun this year with the grants and the, that have come through. So that's a glass half full problem, I guess. And this is a lot. Any other questions or comments, or should I just move? Okay, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, this is Gus. Yeah, this is Gus. I just have a comment. We're talking about sources of funding, and I have missed it because my audio seems to be kind of wacky. That we haven't talked anything about the fund balance that exists. So somewhere along the line this year, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance might be able to find some monies to do special appropriations to accomplish some of the things that they think are difficult to take to the voters for taxes increases. So that's one thing I hadn't heard discussed today that I would recommend the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance consider during the year.
A great point.
I'll comment on that. That last year, the Board of Selectmen in its deliberations came up with a list of recommended special appropriations. And then the Board of Finance took that up and I think agreed with, I think all of them, because I was going back to my original budget presentation from last year, and there was actually a list of, now I've gotten rid of that, of 6, I think, special appropriations that we had recommended. That were, some of them were CIP related. Let me just find that again. And I would recommend that our board do the same thing again. And then I know the Board of Finance took that in consideration and then also made their own choices. So, but that did include the fleet vehicle, $500,000 that we had infused into it. There was a large study that was being done by the Water Pollution and Control Authority for $150,000. We took out the severance out of the budget. So that was not a CIP issue, but that was a budget issue. And also we paid for like the message boards, the emergency management message boards that had originally been in CIP. So there are some projects here that we could argue would be better to fund via special appropriation. I think the board will be looking for those opportunities when it goes through this review as well.
Thank you.
Justin?
Just because you mentioned it, Peggy, small potatoes, but I remember we talked about as well those message boards possibly being FEMA reimbursed. Did that ever happen, or any final conclusion on that?
I'll have to check with Sam on that. I know that they put in for a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know about the message boards. Because that would have been a 50% reimbursement.
Yeah. I don't know if now's the time, motion, vote, discuss, whatever, but I do, I continue to have concerns with the bathroom plans for Rockland and actually East Wharf now, I guess, is a new one because of ARP funds, which I think is great. But if I can share just so other people are thinking about it. I mean, Joan and I have talked most about it, but I'm curious, would welcome other people's opinion. But my concern with Rockland Preserve, putting aside the need for one, but you know, it's so far from downtown, and I know Austin said the system mechanics, they don't need to be pumped very often, but they still need to be serviced. You still need to replace the toilet paper and the Purell. And I guess I also don't know if they have, you know, are they about security? I mean, it's obviously a remote location at the northernmost point in town. So they have to, you know, Public Works or Beach and Rec has to drive 10 miles or 20 miles actually up there and back, you know, for whatever they need to do. So just, you know, just logistic things. I just want to make sure that they're thinking about that. Are we locked?
Sorry, Justin, I think you cut out, or am I freezing?
I think he cut out.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
Oh, he's back.
Okay.
You're back.
No, sorry, I did. And pictures, I'll just finish, Katie. Peggy, pictures, I don't think we have seen photos. So if those are examples or of you know, schematics of what we're actually getting, that certainly would be helpful.
Yeah, could you forward those to the committee?
Yeah, I'll ask Austin to do that. The thing I will say about Rockland, Justin, is that is actually one of the most, it's a destination in the state of Connecticut. It is a heavily used facility because of the bike trails. We're
Right.
like considered like, you know, so in terms of volume of visitor volume, I mean, I don't have the data to support this, but you know, I think, you know, Rockland is used a lot, and during the pandemic, it was used a lot. I mean, we went hiking there and it was more crowded than I think than going to other places in town because of all the hikers. So I think the value of having the facilities is worth it. In terms of, I don't know all the details about how often and you know, the servicing and all that other stuff. Those are fair questions, and I can ask Austin to respond to that in writing, as well as send out the because I think we're putting one of these in at Salt Meadow this year. So that'll be kind of our learning curve, and maybe we see how that goes for 6 months or a year to get a better sense of like the demands and how the public receives these facilities.
Yeah, I won't even doubt that. I you know, it would obviously be nice. I guess I'm just concerned because of its remote location. Do we end up having increased budget costs, but also just like security? I mean, who, you know, is it auto, you know, is people going to be living in there, you know, if you're not careful? So does it have to be locked at night, or is it auto locked, or is it meant to be open, you know, 24 hours a day? I don't know, but I think those, just because of its remote location, I just want to make sure that, you know, we think about that because servicing it, you know, will be, I think there'll be a lot, potentially a lot of inconvenience if the Public Works or Beach and Rec are driving up there, you know, however often. So
Speaking
I think they go up there anyway, though, as part of the maintenance of the
There's a
preserve.
playground there too. Yeah, there's a
Right.
playground there that they have to kind of monitor.
yeah.
And as a North Madison'er, if that's a word, I think that facility gets just as much traffic as, you know, the beaches do on occasions. So I think the security issue, you know, will be the same there as they will be at East Wharf and whatnot. And again, just as a parent, having a bathroom accessible in a remote location where there's a playground, I think will be really helpful.
Okay.
If I could just follow on real quick, because I know you talked about the downtown needs too. I agree that I feel that it would be good for us to have, you know, because I took kids to the Academy playground, and then no one wants to use a porta potty, and then, you know, Memorial Town Hall was sometimes open, sometimes not. One of the things we're looking at is, you know, if the Academy goes through, we're going to have some accessibility with the Academy facility. And then also the Youth and Family Services building. There's a couple of ideas that the town is exploring that will come to a facilities committee about use of that building that could accommodate public restrooms also. So I think there'll be a way to tackle the downtown issue through some other things. But these things are relatively inexpensive, and maybe we opt to end up putting one of these things in instead, you know, making an investment in one of the other buildings for outside access. But,
maybe. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so it could be that we can kind of keep that as a placeholder just for thought, because I think, there's a couple of different options downtown that we can still explore. Whereas really for Rockland and for the beaches, there's fewer options of what we can do.
Right. Yeah, and the reason I think of downtown, of course there are other options, but you kind of have to know what they are, and so maybe it's just a matter of signage, pointing people, because in the summertime, I know the library's open or Cumbies is open, but we have a lot of out-of-town visitors, and they don't know that, so they're kind of looking around with their heads, like, where do I go? And they're obviously reluctant to walk into a restaurant or a store that they're not shopping at, just to use the restroom. But not to belabor this, but because East Wharf came up, and I think that's great. But I do want to, again, I haven't seen the renderings or the pictures of what these things look like, but I think you're going to get a little bit of pushback at East Wharf in particular with a completely waterless, because right now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I use it all the time because I walk there all the time. It's basically open like well into November, I think, and I don't know when it reopens in March or April. But right now, people have water, 2/3 of the year. So I think that I think we should just be prepared or think about that. What's really better off there? Water for majority of the year, or a toilet that's open year round but is limited to Purell. I don't know. I haven't seen these units, but I think at East Wharf in particular, because it gets so much use really throughout the year, there might be, the current setup might be better. I don't know.
Well, I think they're still going to have water because they still have the showers and stuff, outdoor showers. There's still going to be water during during the season. But the actual restroom facility. So fair points. I think, that one hasn't been designed necessarily. Like I said, we're kind of learning a little bit with the experience we're having with Salt Meadow. And East Wharf is going to be a bigger project because it includes existing facilities. So it may be that we don't go to the waterless. That's something that I don't know how far along Austin's got in terms of designing for each. Because West Wharf is going to be a challenge too. They've spent more time on West Wharf because that was known. And then we threw in East Wharf at the last minute to say, let's figure out East Wharf also, because as part of the ARPA funding. But those are all very, I think, good points. I would agree. Those are important points.
I have a question too, and we might as well stay at the beaches. I have a question about the West Wharf dock system that Austin had mentioned, and that comes up in the first year. And I think that too is one of those things that could be an issue with the public. I know when the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed the dock itself, where the boat was docked, there were a lot of complicating factors because there were a lot of different bodies involved with that. And it wasn't smooth because I think it got installed without the approvals. Obviously emergency services were involved, but then Public Works was involved, or Beach and Rec, whatever. And he just talked about the dock system that would be connected to the beach. And it's just one of those things, like Justin saying, that people feel ownership of these places because they use them. So I don't know, I just was cautious about that.
I think there was a lot of different mitigating factors with the dock. We'll just say that, or the gate and the boat, the fireboat. So we're really talking about the fireboat, where I think people were trying to just do something to address an immediate problem, and then realized that it was kind of a domino effect from there. So I think West Wharf itself, I'm actually I'm working internally right now. Like, we want to come back to the ARPA committee with a plan for West Wharf. Because one of the things we talked about is with the bathroom replacement, I feel like we need to look at the whole facility, like where the kayak racks are. Is that the best place? We also have an issue at West Wharf because we don't own all the beach. There's a big chunk of that beach that is actually owned by one of the neighboring property owners. So we have to really, in my view, have about our plan for that whole area. And there's been a lot of plans that have been done, but now that we have some money to actually kind of start working on that, I wanted to come back to ARPA and perhaps get some more money to kind of bundle in with this stuff for a bigger plan. And then that plan would go through Beach and Rec and the boards for approval, as well as the public, as part of that process. So the dock system, my understanding, the dock system, he's got this in here for next year. I'll talk to him about that in terms of the timing of this. Because we were talking about a number of different things because I think the problem is sometimes we focus on fixing one problem, but then don't realize that, hey, if we thought it through more, it would have been nice to also move this and put this there and do that change, so I think we're trying to be more thoughtful about some of that stuff.
Thank you.
Laura, I think that's a great point too. So any other?
I have another question. Sorry.
No, please.
Like, do you guys, because the public people are not the same people on the ARP committee. So do you guys have other things that you want to send to the ARP committee to look at? From this list?
I don't, only because that suggestion was just made today, so I'd have to really look and go through it again. But if you have a suggestion for me, I'm happy to take it.
Well, I think Peggy mentioned something about the grants. Just I was just thinking about in terms of Polson and the emergency stuff, and installing the generator and that sort of thing. Only because that's a large number, and
yeah, we could use all of ARPA and then just get the emergency thing done, and that would basically take up the rest of the ARPA funds. And that would knock a large project out of here. I think though, when the board talked about that a while ago, and we had actually had our own kind of session on ARPA, just a meeting. This is prior to Noreen joining the board. And I think that, I know I personally felt that, I would rather spread the wealth, to have different, groups be able to benefit from the funding, and to just have it all knocked out for that emergency shelter project, which is likely to qualify for some grants. And then I also comment that if, there's this other infrastructure bill that they're talking about for schools. And so I'm hoping that some of the school projects, we might be able to knock off some of those also if this other federal infrastructure bill passes. So those are opportunities that might be there, for those kinds of projects.
Great, thank you.
So I'm wondering if how does the committee feel about going back to vote on the ARP funding piece, and then back to CNRE? Does that work? Okay, hearing no objection, can I get a motion to approve the CIP for the ARP funded projects?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Al. Second?
Second, Galen.
Justin. Oh, Galen, thank you.
Sorry. No, let Justin do it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion passes. And then the CNRE, can I get a motion to approve that?
Certainly.
Thank you, Al. Second?
I'll second that. It's Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Any discussion, further discussion on this? No? Okay, hearing none. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. So in terms of next steps, we have the public hearing on Tuesday, Stacy,
Yes, next
and
Tuesday.
and anything beyond that.
We do have a potential meeting scheduled for Thursday, just to talk about the results or what we heard at the public hearing, and then we would make the document final to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance by February 1st.
Okay. What was I gonna say? I need more coffee now. So I guess, is there any member of the public that would like to speak?
We don't have any public members right now.
Other than our faithful community members, thank you. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So
Come
moved.
on.
So moved.
I saw Justin and Al and Noreen and Emily, so let's consider that a vote as well. We are